It was a matter of when, not if. So when you're evaluating these terrorist attacks, what you do, especially when you're initially looking for threats, is you measure intent plus capability. And now we know, given the vulnerabilities in our system because of some of the federal policies that have been revoked, that haven't been put in place, that have been prioritized elsewhere, like looking at conservatives instead of real extremism, legitimate extremism, we know that we've been sitting ducks.
We now know that we've been sitting ducks because of the willful incompetence and corruption that has pervaded the FBI. That from Fox News. We're also going to see how studies show that threats of terror inordinately shift voter sentiments way, way, way to the political right, and why this weekend all but guarantees that the nation will indeed rally around and unify around Trump and the rising MAGA agenda. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor. Very, very happy New Year to each and every one of you. We made it. We made it to 2025, just 18 days away from the official inauguration of the new golden age. Unfortunately, that day simply could not come soon enough. The whole world is talking today about the terrorist attack we suffered on New Year's. As you all know, a man drove a truck into a crowd at Bourbon and Canal Streets in New Orleans in the early morning hours of New Year's Day. At least 15 people lost their lives. They were murdered in cold blood. 35 others have been injured. The suspect, who was killed by authorities, has been identified as 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar of Texas. He was a U.S.-born citizen and Army veteran. He reportedly had an ISIS flag in his truck, as well as guns and explosives. As we speak, FBI officials are investigating into whether Jabbar acted alone. And then shortly after the vehicular attack in New Orleans, a Tesla Cybertruck parked outside of the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas exploded. The driver of the Cybertruck was killed. Several others nearby were injured. Thankfully, nobody else was killed. And this when a combination of fireworks, gas tanks, and camping fuel in the bed of the vehicle were detonated by a device controlled by the driver. Now, this according to police reports. What is so fascinating here is that the very construction of the Tesla Cybertruck, it saved lives. It limited the damage of the explosion. Here's a report from Fox News.
What I also would like you to pay attention to on that video, as you see that, it looks like the exterior of that truck is completely intact as it sits there. The fact that this was a Cybertruck really limited the damage that occurred inside of the valet because it had most of the blast go up through the truck and out. In fact, if you look on that video, you'll see that the front glass doors at the Trump hotel were not even broken by that blast, which they were parked directly in front of. You can see that in the video there.
So, ironically, this car bomber only ended up killing himself, all the while providing perhaps the single best commercial for the technological brilliance of Tesla. And the Trump International Hotel was basically unharmed. Now, the suspect found dead inside the Cybertruck has been identified as 37-year-old Matthew Livelsberger. He's listed on LinkedIn as an operations director and intelligence manager with Special Forces experience. The latest as of the making of this video is that both terrorist suspects, interestingly, did not just rent their respective vehicles at the same company, right? What's the coincidence of that? They reportedly served at the same military base, Fort Bragg in North Carolina, now named Fort Liberty. And so now authorities are indeed investigating a possible connection between the two attacks. To me, it seems likely, very Al-Qaeda-like. We're also learning that Livelsberger recently used his LinkedIn account to reply to a contract opportunity in Ukraine. And as you can see in this picture, he's wearing a shirt with a Ukrainian emblem on it. Again, it's merely suggestive at this point, but it does have some crossover with Ryan Wesley Routh, who was arrested for attempting to assassinate President Trump at his international golf resort in Florida, We know that Rouse's social media profile on both Facebook and X showed that he was a rabid activist for pro-Ukrainian causes. But the pattern among these suspected assailants isn't the only pattern we're seeing emerge here. Many are pointing the finger, in my view quite rightly, to patterns of behavior at the FBI that are absolutely horrific. This is going to absolutely blow you away.
Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power.
Well, Mr. President-elect and former President, and Donald, congratulations. Thank you. And looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So good. Welcome back.
Now, gang, what you just saw there was both the current president and the vice president eerily congratulating Trump and promising a peaceful transition of power. Well, that's something I'd like to believe. We'd all like to believe, but it's hard to believe those words when they're coming from the mouths of pure serial liars. So what does that mean for the next few months? Well, the opposite of what they're promising, bottom line, right? And we're already seeing it. Chaos pervades the world right now, economically, culturally, politically. We might even be in for a war. So what do you do? How do you prepare for all of that? Well, you should at least own some gold, the timeless value of gold. The markets might be up right now, but who knows what's going to happen between now and the first months of President Trump's term. You need to protect yourself against this last hurrah of the worst administration America's ever had. We know what's coming, right? I don't know what, but we do know it is coming, whatever it happens to be. Something's going to happen over the course of these next few months, and you need to be financially prepared for it. You need to talk to our good friends over at Goldco and protect yourself and your loved ones against this last-ditch effort by the establishment and their, to go full scorched earth on everything before the Trump takes over and the golden era begins. Talk to our friends over at Goldco. They're amazing, and they're going to help you get some gold and its timeless value in your portfolio. Click the link below in the description, or you can scan the QR code and just have a chat with them. You'll be very glad you did. Now, it goes without saying here, based on what we've been seeing from the FBI over the last several years, fewer and fewer people have any confidence in this organization whatsoever. Town Hall has a piece this morning, a very good piece. They're calling what happened over the weekend the FBI's final humiliation. We can only hope it's final. And what they pointed out is that this agency has spent so much time and resources harassing and investigating Trump and the MAGA faithful and J6ers and angry parents showing up at school board meetings than they were tracking down potential terrorists. And any organization that does that is obviously no longer fit for purpose. And again, the entire world saw precisely why. Take a look.
Kirkpatrick said we'll be taking over the investigative lead for this event. This is not a terrorist event. What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found, and we are working on confirming if it's a viable device or not. As Chief Kirkpatrick said, we're asking everyone to stay away from Bourbon Street, specifically from Canal Street to St. Anne. That is my ask. Once again, stay away from Bourbon Street, Canal Street, all the way to St. Anne until we can figure out what is going on. Our goal is to provide you additional information at the 11 a.m. press conference.
Now, you heard her. That's an FBI official. I don't have her name, but that's an FBI official in charge of the scene stating that this was not a terrorist event. This was an event, but it was not a terrorist event. And yet, interestingly enough, right around the same time, that's not what Joe Biden had to say.
The FBI also reported to me that mere hours before the attack, he posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill, The ISIS flag was found in his vehicle, which he rented to conduct this attack.
Note that these reports were given to him by the FBI. So make no mistake, that FBI official knew about the ISIS flag. She knew about the identity of the suspected attacker. She knew all of that. And yet she just proceeded to lie to our faces. Senator Marsha Blackburn blasted the FBI, saying, quote, "The FBI should be focused on fighting criminals and terrorists. Instead, the agency has wasted valuable resources hosting DEI seminars, investigating churchgoers, and raiding President Trump's home." Elon Musk gave his, retweeted that, by the way, gave his full support behind that. So Kash Patel cannot possibly come soon enough. And I think what happened over the weekend all but guarantees his confirmation, the confirmation of all of President Trump's cabinet picks. Unfortunately, until then, things look like they're going to get worse. Former CIA officer Sarah Adams has been sounding the alarm of late that the open border policies, the Bumlin and Biden administration, which remember were deliberate, and the corruption of the FBI together they've afforded the opportunity of hundreds of terrorist sleeper cells infiltrating our nation. Here's what Adams recently revealed on the Sean Ryan Show.
We think it's going to be a swarming attack, right? Multiple different attacks at one time across multiple cities. We think there will be suicide bombers just because some of the attackers went through suicide bomber training and they have these vests. And then we think there's these Fideian attackers who will carry on until they're killed.
You just rephrase that. So these guys are trained and they are going to fight until they're killed.
Yes, and that matters, right? So I was watching this video and it was a suicide bombing in Kabul years ago. The bomber blew up and then everyone starts moving in, the first responders move in, right? And then another guy walks in and blows up. We know this is a tactic. But if Americans don't understand this is a tactic and don't understand these attackers are going to fight to the death, think about that. Battle's going on. The attacker surrenders. He might have the suicide vest. You know, we let our guard down. That man came to die, right? He's going to fight till he dies or you die. So we can't let our guards down, and they know our weakness. So we have to be very careful that we don't have more people die in these second and third order effects of not knowing their intent.
So obviously, this is all very, very concerning. The vulnerabilities that were intentionally imposed on our nation over the last 4 years by this disastrous regime are all coming home to roost. The good news in all of this is that we have several studies from the last decade that show that terrorist attacks, or even just the threat of attacks, like you heard with Sarah Adams, are enough to shift voter sentiment way, way, way to the right. I mean, we've seen that manifest itself in Israel of late, where the political left is basically dead there. Their Labor Party has fallen to single-digit support. They used to be the most popular party in Israel. Now they're lucky if they get 6% support. And it's largely because of both the threats and acts of terror. So what happened over this weekend is only going to further support for the MAGA agenda. It's only going to further unify the nation around Trump. And by God's grace, that unity and the protective measures imposed by the Trump administration will prevent any one of these horrors that Sarah's warning us about from coming to pass.